Thank you so much, Amr Musa. Well, good luck with your campaign. Muwaffaq, inshallah. And we are going to turn to Edgy region. Since it wasn't a question from the floor, but since you were ambassador to Damascus, maybe you want to say one sentence about where you think it is going and what the international community could do.
I think in Syria, basically, the critical issue is a total crisis of deficient leadership. Bashar al-Assad is not his father. As autocratic as Hafiz al-Assad was, whatever he decided, you could take to the bank. And we learned that in many, many negotiations. But Bashar al-Assad, from the very beginning of his administration, he came in with the aura of reform. He has talked the talk. He has never walked the walk. And I think that is the situation as we speak today. His latest interview with Barbara Walters, I would characterize as delusional. For him to say that the only thing he fears, because she asked him a question, do you worry about the fate of Muammar Gaddafi being your fate? And he answered, the only thing a president has to fear is the loss of the support of his people. Now, I think that's one of the most delusional statements that a leader could make in a country in which the blood is being spilled in the streets by his security forces. So we're dealing with a leader, in my few contacts with him, he is not decisive. I wonder really if he is fully in charge himself. And I think that there's going to be an agonizing denouement and a tragic denouement in Syria. The whole international community has given Syria, the Arab League, the United States, the Europeans, the Russians, the Chinese have all given him a long pass to initiate the needed reforms. Because everyone in the international community sees as a totally destabilizing element if Syria goes into a chaotic situation, even sectarian violence, in a very important part of the Arab world, if you will. So he has not taken advantage. He has not displayed the leadership. So I fear, Volker, in short terms, that the situation in Syria is going to devolve in a very destabilizing manner.
I have to say I share your fear, and to add to your fear, from the few meetings I've had with him and more meetings I had with his surrounding, my analysis is that he is in charge. And he probably hasn't been in charge in the first 1, 2, 3 years after succession, but since 2005, he has had his team around him, he has been in charge, and that is my fear, which would have compound yours.
Well,
Prince Turki,
I think he's listening. I think he's listening much more to people around him than his father would make a decision and lead.
Well, theoretically, listening to people is not too bad for someone who is in charge. I guess he listens to the wrong people around him if he listens to people. Prince Turki, there are other questions left to you, and graciously Amr Musa left the question of women for you to answer. But probably one last question on the Syria issue. Since Saudi Arabia was instrumental in getting that deal, which still has to be fully implemented, to get Ali Abdullah Saleh out of power, you think there still is a chance for a similar deal with the Syrian president, sort of immunity against leaving his country alone?
I don't think so, because Ali Abdullah Saleh, while delaying and playing for time, and the situation in Yemen, of course, is different than it is in Syria. He, in the end, signed on the deal. Getting Bashar al-Assad to sign on a deal has been the difficulty. The Arab League, as Ambassador Georgian mentioned, the world community is offering and has offered Bashar al-Assad an opportunity to undertake a way out, if you like. He's refused, and it's a pity because it means more bloodshed. But I guess Amr Musa left me with this question about women because I also wear a skirt. And so maybe that gives me an insight into the plight of our women in the Arab world. what I can say is that application of Sharia is going to be something for the people of the countries where that question arises to undertake. And now that in Tunis and we see in Egypt, so-called Islamist parties have come to the fore as winners in free and fair elections, the people of those countries will be the better judges on where that issue goes. In my country, we're still struggling on how to define the application of Sharia as we believe it, because we do apply Sharia, and how to measure that and to guarantee through that the rights of all the people, women, men, and children. And it is from that context that it is still a work in progress, not just in a country that applies the Sharia like Saudi Arabia, but in other countries that may choose to go that way. Iran, there was a question about Iran. My view of Iran is that it is a paper tiger with steel claws. Those claws are the various groups that Iran supports, not just in the Arab world, but in various other places like Pakistan, Afghanistan, and perhaps even now some of the other stand countries in Central Asia. And as such, while being dysfunctional at home, and you just have to look at how they're treating with their own people, they can use these steel claws to further their interests in the area. On being adolescent, the revolutionaries, frankly, I think that's an insulting term to them. And the whole people of Egypt, for example, rose and removed the previous regime. Same in Tunis, in Libya, and now in Syria, and of course in Yemen, and other places may follow suit. But establishing an Arab parliament, there is an Arab parliament. And the fact that the gentleman didn't hear about it is a reflection of where that issue has gone in the Arab world. Maybe now with what is happening in various countries, something can be decided on that, but I can't say that I foresee it in the near future. Energy security, I see no particular problem today. Terrorists have been trying to affect the issue of energy supply, whether in the kingdom or outside the kingdom, for years, and they have failed. The measures undertaken by the countries that produce energy and sell it on the market, I think, have been very efficient and very effective in securing energy. Monsieur Badinter's question about is it going to be a Turkish model or an extreme model, I don't know. And frankly, Amr Moussa, I think, put his finger on it when he said, particularly in Egypt, that this is the start of the Second Republic, and that everything went before it is no longer applicable. And I think this is true. We are witnessing the end of the post-colonial era in the Arab world. I think I can say the same for Tunis. Definitely, Bourguiba, Ben Ali, and their party and their engagement with the Tunisian people have ended, and we are in a new phase that is post-colonial, completely separate from what followed the colonial powers there. In Syria, again, I think we're facing the same situation. Libya as well. If you remember, Muammar Gaddafi rose against the Senussi king because he accused him of being a lackey of imperialists, colonial rulers, etc. So we are in the middle of this post-colonial, or rather the beginning of this post-colonial era, particularly in those countries that had colonial rule and influence on them. The '48 revolution, I'm not too much of a student of European history, but one thing about revolutions that I've learned in my lifetime is that they generally end up without the leadership of those who began them. And they tend to have a momentum and a dynamic of their own. In most cases, they consume the people who led them. In France, we saw the famous revolution turning into the terror, and then subsequently a dictatorship, and after that, an imperial power. And if you go to the Soviet Union and the revolution there, it consumed many of its initial leadership, Trotsky and Zinoviev and others like that. So my expectation is that those who led the revolutions in the Arab world will not inherit the coming systems. And we've already seen in elections in Tunis and in Egypt an indication of that very historic and well-established practice. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I have the impression that we covered a lot of areas that concern us. Some may be deepened. You have an urge to say a word, Christophe de Margerie?
Well, I just wanted to, after what Prince Turki said, just to say, I mean, things are not as simple as what we try to make it. To say, I mean, there are good people and bad people. And I know Abdallah Saleh quite well. He's not a friend of mine, but I respect him. I know what he has been doing for his country, merging the two parts. The borders problem with Saudi Arabia has been lifted. The problem of borders with Oman has been lifted. And having been investing with his support, the biggest LNG project in this part of the world, nobody could believe that we could build a $5 billion project in Yemen. He gave us his support. He helped us to get out of all of those coming with money and trying to make corruption. He helped us to produce training schools, to bring a lot of young people, young engineers, non-engineers from Yemen to work with this huge project, which is a Yemeni project. 90% of the workers were Yemenis, and not coming from the Philippines or from elsewhere. So I just want to say, I'm not supporting what he has been doing. I know that Saudi Arabia has been playing a big role to solve the issue of his departure. But instead of saying who is right or wrong, let's think before it becomes to be a problem. And we know these countries. We know what can be done or not done. But before it becomes a real thing, and we start to say they are bad or they are good, we forget what they've been doing. We definitely forgot that we have been supporting them. And then suddenly we say they are incapable, etc. Just to say, be careful. There is no easy solution. There is a need of big knowledge and big understanding of what is the local politics, what are the links between those countries, their old culture, and all reports, I would say, rapport between themselves. So again, it's not to give the opposite a lesson, just to say we shouldn't be too easy in saying now is the right time to move or not. Blood is unacceptable, but we can certainly make things better if we move sooner.
It seems it's not so much the Europeans or the US or even Saudi Arabia that is telling Bashar al-Assad or Ali Abdullah Saleh it's time to go. It seems it's their people telling them it's time to go. And unfortunately, they don't have the mechanisms which we have in our states, where when it's time to go, there is a vote and they have to go because the institutions will enforce it. I think we have covered a lot of territory here, interesting territory. I've had some diverse views, and that's good for discussion, and I guess we are going to deepen some of that in the course of the discussions tonight and tomorrow with various aspects. Thank you so much for the 3 remaining speakers and the 4 speakers that were here. I hope you can thank them also. They did a good job. Thank you very much.